Guys, today the three of us are gonna talk about which is more fulfilling, relationships or one-night stands. We have a unique perspective on that topic because we both had into the triple digits of one-night stands. And I think there's a lot of like cultural myths and beliefs about one-night stands versus relationships that are programmed into us that make us make terrible decisions that cause us a lot of stress and oh, nice. A lot of stress and even suffering, right? Because we make the wrong decision about relationships versus one-night stands in a way that causes us to get into terrible, terrible, terrible situations. So this is a very important video in terms of like your long-term emotional well-being, and a lot of the stuff we're going to say will probably challenge your currently held notions. It may be frustrating to hear, you may want to retaliate against it, and I say don't like take what we say at face value and assume it's all true, but just keep an open mind and try to think through it logically. Try to, even if it makes you emotional, the more emotional what we say makes you, the more likely it is that you're biased and that you have this ego, this desire, this ego around it, the harder it is to be logical. So that's important to keep that in mind. But this is something super important because relationships, although they can be great, people's mindsets about relationships often leads them to just despair, honestly, like in the long term.
Yeah.
And this is something we want to like help hash out for you guys, like because we've had a lot of one-night stands. We can say, are they satisfying? Are they not? Do they make you feel empty and alone? Because that's one of the things, like if you have a lot of one-night stands, you're gonna die alone. Well, I mean, first of all, chances are if you're in a relationship, 50% chance you're gonna die alone anyway, because they're gonna die first, and then you're gonna be alone for like 10, 20, 30 years after they die.
Yeah.
And that's
you
important
also
to keep in
lack
mind.
the social skills now too, because you weren't like putting yourself out there. Now
It's gonna be harder to replace them when you're 70.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you lost everything. You got into like a comfortable situation, and now guess what? Because you weren't like put against the grind, because you weren't like you grinding it out every day, because you weren't put in the furnace. You lost the edge, and now guess what? Because you lost the edge, you're 70. Are you gonna get it back at 70? No, you lost it forever.
So there's a few things about one-night stands I want to talk about, like myths. Are they true? Are they false? And one of them is that one-night stands, the sex isn't as good as relationships. That's a common one, that relationships, the sex is going to be better. Honestly, so I'm going to say in some ways, relationships, the sex is better. But in other ways, it's actually much worse. And a lot of the people who have this belief are people who have had one or two or zero one-night stands in their lives. And for a one-night stand to be good, you have to be comfortable. You have to be at ease. You have to be confident that you're going to be able to have, give the other person a good experience, and that you're not worried about your performance. You're not worried about all these things. And the more insecure you are, the less likely you're going to have a great experience. But I found over time, like a one-night stand, the actual experience of it can be completely mind-blowing, and you just get out of your body, you're just in this primal state of just pure lust basically, and it can be an absolutely amazing experience. But if you're say hooking up with someone who you think they're attractive but you don't have very good chemistry, you don't really get along that well, and you're just kind of doing it because, well, she's hot so I should do it, but you don't feel a connection, then it can feel kind of empty. Then it can be kind of disappointing, and it feels like there was no point to it. It feels like there was no connection, no meaning behind it. And so that can be a hollow experience, but it's not because it's a one-night stand that it's hollow. It's because you didn't have a connection or chemistry. Yeah. You don't have to have a long relationship to have chemistry with someone, to have a sense of connection. That can happen in the course of 30 minutes. You can feel like, oh my God, you can feel a very deep connection with someone in a very short span of time, as long as you're open with them, as long as you're putting your full personality, you're being vulnerable, you're not being fake, you're not hiding yourself, and then they do the same. You can have an extremely deep connection. Some of the most intimate sex I've had has been from one-night stands. That can happen, and some of the most exciting sex has been from one-night stands because everything is new. There's the unpredictability to it. There's always going to be more excitement, whereas a long-term relationship, there's going to be more comfort, and generally there's going to be more intimacy because you've been with each other for so long and you have this feeling of caring and trust with each other. The problem though is no matter how hot you think the other person is initially, and how like exciting it is initially, like it's gonna wear off. Like that's gonna wear off. It's gonna get less exciting. There's gonna be a point, because I've been in a relationship as long as I've not only had one night stands, I've had long relationships too. I've had a 4-year relationship would be my longest. And at a certain point, you're just not really like excited about the idea of sleeping with them because you've already been through it, right? It's like, this sounds bad, but it's like, watching the same TV show that you've watched before. You might love that TV show, but if you watch it too many times, at a certain point, it's not exciting. You're not really looking forward to it. You might, while you're doing it, might be very enjoyable, but it doesn't have the excitement factor. So I found overall the most exciting sex does come from one night stands. But to be fair, sex isn't the only part of a relationship, the only like part of your life that matters. You don't necessarily have to be having crazy exciting sex to have a satisfying enough sex life. You can have that with the relationship, but it's going to, like, that initial peak is gonna fade away, and that can be very difficult to deal with because you had it initially with this person, but now it's like I feel like I'm going through the motions. I'm curious about something new. That curiosity is universal. That desire for different experiences, that's just something you're going to experience. That's a trade-off you have to be willing to make. Like, you have to be willing to give up the excitement to be able to have a satisfying relationship. So if you're not willing to give that up, that's going to be a huge problem, and one night stands might be better for you. But if you're like, you know, if that trade-off of the intimacy and comfort and some of the other benefits that come with a relationship is worth giving up exciting sex, then that might be something worth, like, a better option for you. But you got to really think, which of those do you value more? Because there's a trade-off. It's not like one is good and one is bad. There's pros and cons, right? It's not like one night stands suck and that lifestyle is empty and hollow and boring and terrible, and then relationships, everything good happens. No, there's a lot of cons of relationships, but there's also advantages to them, and you got to really balance this in your mind when you think, what do I want long-term for myself? Don't make it binary, like all the goods are on one side, all the bads. It's not. There's a sacrifice that you make with each.
Yeah, a lot of people. All right, so here's the problem with I think with society in terms of like one night stands and people that are single. Like, all right, so this is what most people think. Girls have this reality where sex is really easy for them. So they're like, oh, it's easy for us, so it must be easy for them. So this is really weird. When you approach a girl, sometimes you get rejected because the girl's like, oh, this guy right here could have sex with any girl he wants, and he's just gonna throw me away. He's just gonna use me and throw me away, and I'm getting tired of getting used and thrown away. But like, this girl has no idea how hard it is for a guy on average to actually get laid. Like, I mean, like, the amount of effort that it takes, like, a guy, like, there's very much like a difference in like value when it comes to like the upfront. Guys obviously have the value, like the control in the back end. We get to decide on the relationship, but girls have the control in the back end. Like, you have more control in the dynamics of the relationship and also being the man in the relationship if you set it up the correct way. But the girls have the strength in the beginning. And then, not to mention too, there's these guys that believe that there's this subsect of men that are like, that they can never be, and they get jealous over this, and they're like, these guys up here are getting laid, all the women I want, and they like, I just want to love a girl and take care of her, and these guys are evil. These guys are evil, and they're taking advantage of girls, when in all actuality, girls are way more intelligent than that. Girls are not that stupid. And I'll say this, like attracts like. You're not going to attract somebody that isn't your type. Like, if you're resonating a certain energy, you're gonna draw that to you, and that's what you have to understand. There's nothing wrong with like being a person that wants to be single, that wants to play the field, that wants to sleep around. Give people good emotions. Be a positive entity and good human being. I just think it's really stupid that society has to make it so binary. Like, if you're not in a relationship, you're not married, and you're just sleeping around, you're a monster. You
need to man up.
You need to man up. That's stupid. All right, don't listen to them. All right, this is coming down to like, this is like, I feel like Oprah would be like fucking waving a microphone, like, you know, like right now saying this, or like somebody on like the View.
Well, my theory is it actually comes from, it comes from some very deep historical stuff. The reason why we promote monogamy and say that's the only way to live and that's correct, and not being monogamous is incorrect and bad. I mean, even like TV shows like How I Met Your Mother, the characters are only satisfied when they're in the relationship. Like, eventually they feel empty if they're having one night stands, right? Barney eventually is miserable, and he's like, he hates one night stands, and they ruined his life. Things like that. Why is that the narrative? I think it actually comes from the societies that were the most successful at building and expanding. Go back to Christian societies when Christianity started spreading, because they had enforced monogamy in the society. Like, that's what's promoted, that's what you're supposed to do, and those societies succeeded. So monogamy is one of the cornerstones of a society as a whole succeeding, because if you don't have monogamy and you have a polygamous society, which, by the way, in the past most societies were at one point polygamous, those societies have a higher chance of like rebellion. They have less men who are having families and like able to get women, so they're more likely to, that's going to cause problems, right? More crime, they're going to expand less, they're going to it's going to cause a lot of problems and dissatisfaction. And so a Christian or any kind of like enforced monogamy, those societies spread, and so that goes all the way to the present, where that's deeply embedded in every aspect of our culture, because that's what led our culture to succeed where others failed. So that turns into them telling you, you need to be monogamous to be happy, because that's what makes society as a whole function. But as an individual, it's not what makes you happy. It's what makes society work as a whole if most people are following that. So that's why it's culturally enforced, because we live in a free society. It can't be legally enforced anymore. But that's why that's still a big aspect of our culture. That's my theory anyway. So keep that in mind when you think about like monogamy, all that romance, all the Hollywood, all those narratives. They come from something that is not necessarily so benevolent as what you'd think. There's always some underlying reason why the culture is the way it is. Now, one thing I want to mention before we go to the next topic is that we're actually about to be touring. We're going to be doing touring because now coronavirus, that whole thing, is the pandemic is loosening up, hopefully ending. People have their vaccines. They don't have to worry. The restrictions are coming down. Most cities now, the bars and clubs are open. You can do what you want. Vegas is insane now. You know, Diplo tonight, going to be fully packed, 4,000 people in one club, stuff like that. No one wearing masks, etc., which is great. So we're going to be doing a tour now that we finally can. We're going to be traveling to different cities to do boot camps and to most likely also do some kind of speeches while we're there. And so I'm going to link below after the video our schedule. But in July, we're going to be going to Miami, Chicago, Atlanta, and then in August, we're going to be going to Phoenix and through California. So through San Diego, LA, and probably one or two other cities. So if you're interested in taking a boot camp with meeting us in person and getting coaching from us in person, individually, like actually getting our feedback and letting us show you what mistakes you're making, what you need to work on, and pushing you to an extent that you've probably never been pushed before in terms of how much action you're going to take and what results you're going to get in 1 week. And by the way, if you're asking if this is live, it is. It's too far away to read on the phone. We're going to answer the questions later, as opposed to, because I don't want to be distracted and then like half paying attention to what I'm saying. So we'll get to the questions later, but it is live. And so make sure to like come back for that link once we have it. If you're interested in doing a boot camp with one of us, he'll have a link as well. And that's going to be a cool opportunity because we haven't been able to do any traveling, and who knows if we'll be able to do it, and who knows what's going to come next, right? But this is an opportunity to meet us in person if you live near any of those cities, any of those areas. So make sure to keep that in mind and check that out. Now, the next point I wanted to make in terms of the topic at hand is the idea that relationships, you have this long-term fulfillment, and one-night stands are hollow and you end up feeling empty, and there's more pain in one-night stands. I think that is very false, because in a relationship, guess what? 95% of relationships end.
It's a slow, painful
Maybe
death.
It doesn't end in one night, but it ends. And it involves a lot of pain. It involves feelings of emptiness or helplessness or being controlled, trapped, being manipulated. The majority of relationships, if you watch them, like they're falling apart. They're on the brink of, like, after 6 months, after a year, whatever it is, like they're not getting along very well. They're not very compatible, as it turns out, as much as they thought they were. And they're like trying to keep something that was there for a few months. They're trying to keep it, get it back, but it's gone, and they're like grasping for breath in a sense. And so they're miserable. And that's very, very common. And so a relationship ends up involving months, if not years, of suffering, and you break up eventually, and then you have that feeling of loss, that tremendous feeling of loss that can lead to another long period of having these negative emotions, negative feelings, where a one-night stand, you might get less feelings of intimacy, so in a sense you have less to gain, but guess what? Maybe you really like someone you had a one-night stand with, but are you gonna, like, for months afterwards be in pain? Or are you gonna have months of being with them where it feels like a shit show? Like, it feels like all this, like, you have a toxic relationship? No! There's actually a lot less to lose when it comes to one-night stands. So you could argue there's less to gain because you're not gonna start a family or something, right? But there's also less to lose, and most relationships end badly. Like, just mathematically, statistically, first half of marriages end in divorce. And guess what? It's not like all the ones that don't end up in divorce are good. A lot of them, they're staying together because they feel like they have no other options, because they have a family that they want to stay together for the kids, etc. And they're forcing it even though they don't like each other much. I've seen plenty of relationships that you would think, if you met them for like a few hours, you'd think, oh, they're really great together. But when you know them, you see how toxic those relationships are. So it's very important to keep in mind that, yes, a one-night stand, like if you want a family, well, one-night stand isn't gonna, it's not gonna help you accomplish that goal. But the vast majority of relationships end badly, right? They end, and the amount of suffering and negative emotions and consequences to them is much higher. So if you're someone who's leaning towards like, I want to be in a relationship, I don't want one-night stands, you have to be very, very, very careful who you get into a relationship with.
Well, you're probably somebody also too, if you need a relationship, you're probably codependent or a narcissist, and either way, that's gonna turn out to be a toxic relationship. You need to do some self-work. If you need a relationship and you're like hearing this conversation right now between us, and you're like, I need to find a girlfriend, these guys are assholes. To be honest, you're gonna find yourself in a very horrendous situation here not too long. It's like you have to be a person that's what's called very interpersonal. Like you're looking for an interpersonal relationship where they're their own person, you're your own person. Interdependent. That's the idea. You're your own people, and you guys are not like trying to control and constantly manage each other. You guys want what's best for each other, but you're not like, and you respect boundaries. You respect like privacy boundaries, space boundaries, time boundaries, like physical boundaries. Like you're respecting boundaries. Like you're your own person. You're your own person. There's no kind of manipulation or controlling going on. It's just pure if like your partner left, it's not like your world's ending. I mean, like it will still suck. I mean, you imagine you still love your partner, but you're not gonna be like trying to like manipulate them coming back or something like that. Trying to play the puppeteer over here with your partner, somebody you're supposed to love. Like that's a problem.
Part of the problem with codependence is that it's something that sneaks up on you gradually. So it's not like, oh, you're instantly totally attached to this person. You need them for your happiness, and you feel like they're the missing puzzle piece to complete you. What is that special called? It's really good to understand relationships on Netflix. Jigsaw. Yeah, that like if you want a really good explanation of why so many relationships are toxic and hurtful, that's it. I hope that's Sean.
It sounds like a big place.
So you can watch that, check that out. That's a great example. Someone's knocking on the door, so give us 1 second. Yeah. Oh, hey man, what's up?
I love you.
I love you more.
Okay, bye.
So, what's up? So a lot of relationships, what happens is you slowly feel like you need this person. You go into scarcity where they are irreplaceable, and you've invested so much in them that you're unwilling to lose them. You don't think you could find what they offer you in someone else because you've spent all this time. The more you emotionally invest, the more you get attached to them, the more likely you're to become codependent. As soon as you feel like, man, if I were to try to replace her, it would be like this arduous journey. If I were to lose her, I would be so miserable for a long time. As soon as you start to have those thoughts, your relationship is on the way to becoming toxic, right? It's on the way to becoming codependent. And not every relationship is by definition codependent, but that's what the majority of relationships turn into, because that's what our entire society, as we were saying earlier, that's what it reinforces. It encourages that. It wants us to be overly attached in an unhealthy way so that people can be monogamous and start families. Even if they don't like each other, that's what makes society function. So that's a huge problem, and you have to be aware that you're not immune to this. Like, you might think, oh, that's other people, but this, no. Assume that you're probably more likely to become codependent than not, that you're more likely to get into toxic relationships, that's very easy to happen, and that if you're not careful, it will happen to you. And look for any red flags that you're becoming codependent whenever you're in a relationship, because that very quickly turns into a miserable situation that most people have been through at some point. Chances are, watching this, you've probably been in a codependent relationship. Either you're the one that felt trapped, or you're the one that felt overly attached and like you're trying to hold them back. Whichever one it is, you've probably been in one of those situations, unless you've never been in a relationship, which maybe not. It's very common. That's the default, and you really got to look for the signs that that's going to happen. Like, that's so important. Don't let your ego make you assume, oh, well, this girl's special and there's no way we could become codependent. As soon as you're thinking that, that's a sign you're already becoming codependent.
Yeah. All right. So, all right. I'm probably the king of like being the person that, like, I'm not gonna lie.
Charisma?
Charisma. Yeah, king of charisma. I've had like a history of having relationships that were probably not the most like positive. I'm pretty good at the upfront stuff. The other side of things, the relationship stuff, I've experienced quite a few. And I'll put it this way: there are some people out there that are very, very manipulative, and they're very good at manipulating you. You might feel like it's like love and true love, and it's very fast and it falls head first, and you're like, this is something special. Anytime you say something like a relationship is special, there's something wrong there. It's not like, you can never tell yourself this like fairy tale like fantasy relationship, because it's never gonna be something like that. It doesn't exist. All right, you can't tell yourself this girl's special, because there's no such thing. There's probably, all right, if there's 1 in 100 girls for you that is like, your perfect type, there's a lot of girls that you could have been in a relationship with. It's not this girl specifically. If this girl's gone, that's fine. Wish her the best. There's gonna be another one around the corner when you're in the right place for it. But it's like,
that actually gives me like the best way to tell if a relationship is toxic. If they were to like leave you,
bomb.
or they lost interest in you, or they were to start dating someone else, if you would think, no, I need them, I need to get them back, I need to do whatever it takes to get them back, that means it's toxic. What you should be thinking is, you know what, that hurts, I don't like it, that like attacks my ego, but they're their own person.
let them go.
And if that's what makes them happy, then that's what I want for them, right? Is it, do you need something from them? Are you trying to control them? You're trying to, you're objectifying them? Or are they their own person still? And the majority of people, they lose that distinction at some point.
So this is something that I've actually been talking about quite a bit lately, and this is probably going to be the most triggering conversation. I promise it's not that bad. So it's our selection. So here's the thing. So when it comes down to being a man, if you're a man that's on the higher tier of getting like sex and you're pretty good with women, there's actually a scale for this in evolution. It shows this. It shows amount of sexual partners, like the amount you can have sexual partner wise, and the amount of value you get from it. And for a guy, it goes like this. For a girl, it goes like this. So for a girl, it makes sense to get in a monogamous relationship, because at a certain point, you can get like you can cap it out, because you can only have one baby like every so long, and if you get the highest value guy you can, that's you capped out. But if you're a guy and you're like this, more sexual partners the better. So coming from an evolutionary standpoint, to be honest, if you're a guy that's really good with girls or like has a lot of options, being single is actually biologically the right answer. To be honest, that's why when it comes to dating, humans are not either necessarily monogamous or polygamous. We're like this weird mixture. Your brain's trying to find like the right avenue to get you the most amount of value with the like in your certain niche, in your tribe.
The least risk. I think it's a little more complicated than that, actually. So I think there's a couple layers of nuance to that. One is for women, that whole S value, having a relationship does have, because the whole investment of having a child, but it also, they gain value from cheating on that person and getting other people's genes to getting better people genes, right, if possible. So if anyone else has some kind of better genes, like would be like a better leader, better fighter, better whatever, like it makes sense for them to want to be able to get other people as well. So to cheat has a lot of advantage.
Well, they can also straddle them too, just in case like he decides to like date her instead, like so that they might get like that kind of feeling, but they won't risk losing it's a long
so women
story.
Being completely single has a lot of risks.
Yeah.
But of course, this isn't even known. There's also some, like you could argue, we might have been more like bonobos, but we don't know which type of ape or whatever that we were the most like. There's actually debate between that. And bonobos, they have like a whole relationship amongst each other, and they're very polygamous. Yeah. And genetically, we're very similar to bonobos, but then this gets like into nerdy stuff. But we're actually very similar to baboons in terms of our environment. And baboons were less. They didn't all like have relationships with everyone. So that's actually very debatable. I would say there's a lot of evidence that women do gain benefits from having multiple partners, and they are very likely to cheat. And there's a reason why they cheat as much as they do. And men also gain benefits from monogamy, because if they have one solid relationship, the children they have with that person are more likely to thrive and survive, because they can give them more attention and care. The risk, though, is if she cheated on them without him knowing, then he's raising someone else's children, which is like a huge risk. So that's why for men, like sleeping with a lot of different people guarantees that your genes are making it in the next generation.
There's a book on this called Red Queen. I think it's pretty good, and also Sperm Wars, if you guys have never read either of those books. But to like bring it back, there's a study that actually talks about the size of balls in comparison. Okay, it's okay. All right, so in comparison to body size, and like what it indicates is, if it's bigger, it indicates that you're more of a polygamous species. If it's smaller, it means that you're more monogamous. Body size, to which this also could be like, there could be a million different reasons. Humans are a very weird animal. This might not be the right answer, but the answer, like for us, as a species, it's right in the middle. So like, I don't know. I think that humans are more like I feel like we're more of a multiple creature. But then again, like maybe like the monogamy is like I don't think monogamy for your entire life is the answer, because people change. Like we weren't living this long. Like we were living till the age of 30 or 20, like 30 at the maximum. If you're 30, you're an old man. 40 is like you're an elder. Like at that point, nobody's living to 70, 80. Like you're like I lived with Sally for like 40 years and I want to kill myself. Like it's like rolling through the place.
I think if you look to science, it's very complicated, and if you actually look at it, like there's no clear answer from evolution whether we should be monogamous or polygamous, or whether we should have one night stands or relationships. Like there's so much competing evidence, and it's so far in the past that it's like where it comes from. It's hard to get like a very clear, solid answer because there's always other possible explanations. Yeah. So that like what it does show is like the whole idea that monogamy is the only way and that's the best. It kind of like makes you question that, like maybe polygamy is our natural state. But it's not clear that we should be polygamous either. It's not like that's not the conclusion it draws. I think what you got to think about is, first of all, relationships do have a lot of potential negative consequences. And one of the major takeaways from this video is I think you should be very cautious about getting into a relationship, and especially cohabitation, especially living with someone. That's where they tend to go very downhill. That's what I've seen in the past myself. I've seen it in others. Cohabitation, if you do it too soon, and you're rushing towards that tends to lead to a very toxic situation. It tends to get very bad. It's not guaranteed, but that tends to happen. So I would say, like, my rule for myself is I'm not going to live with someone unless I've been with them at least a year. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to live with them unless I've been with them for at least a year. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe we're going to start a family, and that's the direction. Because living with someone makes it so easy to get super codependent. So that's a big thing. Also, just committing to a relationship, I think it's important to wait until you're past the honeymoon phase, because the honeymoon phase, very real. 3 to 6 months, you're at your best, you're still excited, you still got all this, like, these chemicals are running really strong. Those wear thin after a certain point, and the real relationship starts. Imagine the real relationship starts after about 6 months or more. That's when the real nature of the relationship, what it's going to be like forever, that's when it comes out. And you're not going to be able to get that initial 3 months back. It's not going to go back to the way it was. So you have to ask yourself, after 6 months, is this a good relationship? Are we getting along? We are able to be healthy. We don't fight too much. We enjoy each other's company. We have similar values. We connect, etc. If the answer is yes, then there's a good chance you can have a healthy relationship, but you need to wait. I'm not opposed to relationships. There's a very good chance that I'm gonna end up having a family, being in a long-term monogamous relationship. There's a high chance that I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna be very careful about getting into that because people are not careful enough at all. And I think part of the way to find out how you're gonna have a healthy relationship is through having one-night stands, through dating different people, having a variety of options, a variety of experiences, because one, it makes you less desperate and needy when you do find a relationship, because you know, okay, I can find different people, I can meet different people, I can attract someone new into my life. And then secondly, it gives you a better idea of what you want, what you don't want, what you resonate with, what you don't resonate with, and it helps you like get a better idea of what you actually would want in a person. And not just one-night stands, but also say like casual relationships that go longer. That's kind of how you get a better idea of what is going to be good for you.
Yeah, and here, I do see some people getting egos in the comments.
I'm sure.
I'll put it this way, okay? For you guys, try it the hell out first. You guys are like, look, all right, this is the one thing that I don't like about current society. You guys get egos and you guys get invested in like a certain belief because you get this narcissistic
I would
belief.
say we, because
well,
that applies to
us too.
like you're implying it's just like them, but we're
us too,
perfect.
Us too. Well, here, I'll put it this way.
Everyone gets it.
We are open-minded to trying out monogamy. I'd still be open to it. I'm not against it. It's just currently, from my current statistics, from my current standpoint, I've looked at everything. I tried both sides. I looked at things from the outside world, and the honest answer is the answer I'm giving you. Now, this is what happens with an ego. You get invested in an ego, and you go down a certain route for a certain period of time. You take the actions. Now you got to rationalize it. So, have you been rationalizing your actions? Have you been rationalizing what society's been telling you? Have you just been told a certain truth, and now you're getting triggered, and you're getting emotional? Do you feel emotional in your body? Because if you feel emotional, guess what? You're probably not thinking logically. You're probably not thinking critically.
And that applies to relationships too. The more emotional you are, the stronger the emotions you're feeling, the less likely you're making rational decisions, and the more likely you are falling into codependency or scarcity or something along those lines. That's got to be part of the equation in your mind when you think about your decision making. If I'm getting really emotional, I need to have more distance with the thoughts I'm having. I need to scrutinize those thoughts more and like do research and like look up different theories and be open-minded as opposed to just going with the emotions.
Try it out. Yeah, just
emotions
try it out.
will mislead you.
Yeah, just try it out.
All right, let's answer, because there's been a ton of comments.
I've been seeing them.
All right. Oh, that was already 30 minutes.
Damn.
Do I believe in the wall or do I think it's red pill cope? Women over 30 have a hard time finding a man. It does get harder, especially if they're mothers. But it's exaggeration. Like,
if you take care of yourself, it's a lot less.
It's not as black and white as they make it sound.
Yeah.
I don't want a one night stand. My bedroom already has one. You should use that as an opener.
That's a great one.
Hey, girl, look, you're really hot, but I don't want a one night stand because my bedroom already has one. Yeah, having a partner by your side versus excitement. That's kind of one of the trade-offs you got to make. Although, to be fair, you can have casual relationships that are somewhat like committed in the sense that even though you're seeing other people, you see each other a lot, you have intimacy. It's also like an open relationship would be one. Then jealousy comes into play. That's the trade-off, right? There's going to be jealousy almost inevitably. So that's the trade-off you got to make. But there are ways to have one-night stands in the excitement, but also have, say, a friends with benefits, things like that. Mm-hmm. So, but that is kind of the trade-off you got to think. And the partner by your side has a lot of advantages, but it also has some serious disadvantages. The biggest disadvantage of a relationship, in my experience, is it makes it very easy to get comfortable. And it makes it easy to kind of rest on your laurels, if you will, to like stop hitting the gym, to gain like the whole the relationship guide, like that can happen. Or to feel like, because you don't have this sense of evolutionary pressure to like push yourself, and you have this person that's giving you so much validation, so much comfort, and a lot of the time they want to pull you away from working, they want to pull you away from hustling, from working out, from doing these things, and your habits, your behavior changes to be just like doing nothing with them in bed. And if that's happening, that's a sign that the relationship can harm you in a big way. So comfort definitely has its disadvantages,
manipulation,
and I think you want to make sure that that's not the type of relationship, unless that's the lifestyle you want. Like you really genuinely desire that.
Nobody does.
I don't know. I wouldn't go that far because who knows? We're only one person. You know,
well,
maybe
fair.
Like I've seen video game streamers. I think that sounds like that's your whole life is just playing video games 12 hours a day. That sounds empty. But some of them seem to be pretty happy, and maybe they are. You know, if that's what they want. We have different values. So if that's their genuine value, I'm not going to say anything's wrong with it. You just want to question whether that's a genuine value or if you're, rationalizing that that's a good situation.
Fair enough.
I might do more Who Has Better Game videos. The problem with them is they lead to copyright strikes, which are just obnoxious. Even though they're technically copyright protected and they shouldn't get copyright strikes, it's just YouTube's system about that is not ideal, to say the least. All right. Are you guys a gay couple? Whatever you want us to be. Let's see. The interface for going over comments, by the way, is not the best here.
I'm not sure about their live systems yet. They do a lot of weird things, like the thumbnail's kind of a weird thing.
Technical game. I think there's aspects of, I teach a lot of aspects of technical game myself. There's parts where it's important, but being too technical can definitely be a problem. Not being able to let loose and have fun and focus on that. And the best conversations you're going to have generally are going to be free-flowing, spontaneous, rather than going over a script. So even if the script could work, it's not going to be as fun. It's not going to be as meaningful. You're not going to really connect with the person because you're just doing a script. And so it's kind of like they're an object, right? Like you're getting the goal and of getting laid or whatever, and you're going through a skip to get to that objective as opposed to doing something different with every person having an organic, real human connection. Yeah. So that's my problem with it. Can it be effective for getting laid? I think so, but I don't think it would be very satisfying.
Well, actually, I got a good one for this. So my game is very technical, especially when you actually like do breakdowns. If I ever do like a video breakdown of it, I'll put it this way: if you're doing technical game, it should not be thought. You should not have to think about it. Maybe like work on one part of technical game at a time if you're going to. Mm-hmm. But the emotions are by far the most important thing. The mindsets and beliefs are the most important. Technical can help, but in regards to it, you want it to be like just second nature. It should just happen. If you have to think about all this different stuff, you're taking yourself away from that authentic self, and the girls are gonna sense on some level. It's gonna fuck your sets up. All right.
Question about falling with a girl she's walking. Yeah, well, if walking with a girl is fine, if she seems uncomfortable, acknowledge it and like calibrate. And if she doesn't want you there, then leave. And then secondly, don't follow her. Be next to her, if not slightly in front of her, and make sure you give her space to the side as opposed to being like, you don't want to be in like stabbing range, basically, right? You want to be far enough that she feels like her space is not being invaded. So walking with girls a lot of time is more comfortable than just trying to stop them. because that can be pushy depending on like what they're feeling. But you want to do it right. So you want to make sure you give them space, that you make eye contact, and then you're not following them. You're in front of them like by a foot or two, or at least to their exactly to their side. So you're like walking together. All right, let's see. How do I go through? What is the difference in your boot camps? Well, we have different, like he has a video where he talks about all the details. Like there's differences. You can look, we each have our own testimonials that explain like what kind of results people tend to get and what their experiences were. So you can look through those. You can look through our descriptions of them. There's some differences. There's some similarities. Like we have a little bit differences in our methods and styles, but it's not wildly different. I mean, we both spend two of the biggest advantages are that we both spend a lot of personal time with the clients, and we only take a couple clients at a time as opposed to say 9 or 10, which some of our competitors legitimately do. And you can't coach 10 people well, obviously. I mean, that's just I think that's really a money grab at that point. But when you're working with 2 people, you're giving them a lot of attention and you're getting the value that you wanted. You're getting us to coach you as opposed to someone's assistant.
Yeah, we're both really good at like kind of getting to the root of what's going wrong with the client. We're constantly like, we're very caring individuals, and that's one thing I'm going to say about the boot camps in general. Like, we're not like people. I don't think there's ever been a person on boot camp who came on boot camps like they didn't care about me. I think everybody comes on the boot camps like these guys did everything they possibly could. Like we're the kind of guys who will like lay in a puddle so you can walk across our backs to go talk to a girl. If I'm going to put it that way, like we're very hands-on.
Is taking a break from game women and all sex any beneficial for game? I think it would depend on where you're at. So maybe if you've gotten results, right? You've gotten the kind of tangible results you wanted, and you're feeling like burnt out. That could be useful for a phase. That there may be benefits to that. But if you haven't yet, and you've never had any like wins, if you will, right? You haven't gotten dates or whatever. Then that just sounds like a rationalization to be lazy.
Exactly. Agreed. Massively agreed.
But like, yeah, if you've been burnt out, like if you feel burnt out, you're going hard for months and months and really pushing yourself, doing tons of approaches, like, but you feel like you're going through the motions, then taking a break might be good for you. But you want to plan it out in advance. I would suggest like, say I'm going to start again this time so that you don't just like turn that break into indefinite. No problem. Happy to answer your question. I'm worried I'll break her heart because she fantasizes about marriage and stuff. I love her and want to be monogamous for now, but I don't think she's the one for me. Well, I mean, if you don't think she's the one for you, the sooner you get out of that relationship, the better, because the longer you're in it, the worse the breakup is going to be and the more painful for each of you it ends up being. So if you already think you know that, then you probably do. And that's like you have a tough decision to make.
You're gonna get passive aggressive with her over time too. You're gonna
start resenting her, exactly. and then she'll probably start resenting you because you want different things. So you got to make sure when in a relationship, one of the most important things is that you want similar things in terms of your values and in terms of what you want out of a relationship. If they're too different, then that causes friction, and that friction, if it's a lot of friction, turns into resentment and toxicity. All right. I think, any last things you want to say?
9/11 was an inside job.
He's being ironic, okay? Algorithm gods. He's not. You're gonna get us categorized as conspiracy theories.
We just said it. All right. Fine. All right. Yeah. Here's what to be honest, this is not like a clear-cut answer. Nothing is. If your answer is like definite yes or no, we're not.
Oh, I do want to answer that.
Yeah, I don't personally think that like this is necessarily maybe the right answer for everybody. Some people are not exactly trying to shoot for the top echelon of women, or trying to shoot for the top echelon of their life. Some people just want to have a comfortable, relaxed life. That's fine by you. Mm-hmm. For us, like for me personally, I like it that it's a struggle. You know why? Because it means that I'm sharper. It means I'm smarter. It means I'm a lot more witty. It means that I'm a lot funner to hang out with. It means that I have more life in my eyes. It means that I get to like work my business, use this kind of stuff for like things that actually matter. So for me personally, when it comes to being in a relationship, currently, it just doesn't make any sense. I probably will not even consider being in a relationship at least for till I'm in mid-30s, I think. It just like
we'll see. We'll see about that one.
Maybe. I'm telling myself that now, but maybe we'll see. All right.
Okay, and so one other thing, someone said from my previous video that I said game doesn't treat or like make depression go away or get rid of internal sadness. I didn't say that. I said it doesn't like fully get rid of them in the way that you might fantasize they do, right? It doesn't like make you, suddenly you go from miserable to super happy. It doesn't like cure all your deep-seated in like feelings of inadequacy or whatever. It can, in my experience, doing game definitely helped with anxiety because I was diagnosed with panic disorder and social anxiety, and game is pretty much what treated my social anxiety, like getting out of my comfort zone and disproving my fears about rejection and being humiliated, being laughed at, all these things I had built up over the years, this, you know, whether they're trauma or whatever you want to call it, it loosened that up and it helped me release that over time. So definitely can help with anxiety. And it also helped with my anxiety in general because all anxiety is related. So even though they're from different sources, the social anxiety, working on that helped me deal with my, I had anxiety about like health and other things. It helped with that too. So it did help with anxiety. I think it can also be helpful for depression in the sense that depression, a lot of it has to do with feeling alone and disconnected. And if you're doing pickup and in a healthy way with a healthy mindset where you're not just like trying to use people, but you're connecting with people, that can help you feel connected. It helps you feel less alone. It helps you, it also is making you active. And the biggest thing about depression is it's like being too much of a consumer and thinking about the past and just not doing anything. The more you're doing, the more you're exerting, that helps with depression as well. So what I was saying is it's not like a cure that fixes all your problems. If you have like some feeling of internal emptiness, it doesn't immediately make you feel fulfilled by itself. It doesn't solve all your problems in the way that you might fantasize it does, the way our mind likes to think, because that's just this bias the human brain has. Like, this is gonna fix me. We think that about everything. Like, once I make money, it's gonna fix me. Once I get a six-pack, I'm gonna feel fixed. That's almost always an illusion and an exaggeration, but it can make you happier. It can reduce depression, can reduce anxiety. It helps, but it doesn't like fully fix these problems. So that's what I'm saying about it. Cut off smartphone and your anxiety and depression will disappear. I don't know if that's true either, but I think it would probably help. I mean, there's a good chance that spending less time on social media would help with those things, and I do think they probably contribute to how bad they are right now, like our addiction to social media and to you know, Hulu, video games, just being on a screen at all times, consuming. I think a big part of it is just like consuming too much and not doing things that have some kind of like long-term benefit. Like even reading, at least there's an act, you're doing something active and you're doing something that like requires effort, right? Anything that requires effort, I think helps with things like depression and especially depression, and some things also with anxiety.
Well, it's called, these are two. So I still do get depression on occasion, but it's so much lighter than it used to be. I mean, so much lighter. I mean, obviously I'm not like a perfect human being or anything like that, but I'll say two things.
Try to be a homewrecker? Okay.
I saw that, yeah. I think that's like, the first thing is obviously what he was talking about right there. It's called Keystone Habits. Investing in a Keystone Habit is something that bleeds in the rest of your life, and it makes your entire life better as a whole. It's also the feeling of moving forward, like you're making progress. For me personally, having a purpose is huge. Having a purpose was massive for me personally, and getting like the feeling of like I'm doing something with my life. So if you are depressed, find something that you really want to chase and you really love doing. Find something that like it scares you a little bit, and then like chase that thing. There's probably something you really love doing, you want to do, but you're scared. Do that. Okay, that's pretty much it.
Y'all don't know how it feels to be broke. Actually, untrue. I grew up. My father was well into poverty. Sometimes we lost electricity. I lived in a trailer for a number of years. Actually, in high school, I literally lived in a trailer, so I know exactly what it's like to be broke. I don't know why you're assuming I don't. He said, you don't know what it's, and then I'm out of here.
I got this one.
That's right, I get that.
So my dad and me, we used to live in a 20 by 20 box that was squared off like this, and before that we lived in a motel where everybody was hooked on like meth. Like one of the girls there was like jabbing herself with a needle all the time. I've also been in and out of homelessness, like building this business on occasion. I also, like, I slept on a popped air mattress for the first year and a half of me trying to figure out this company.
Ooh, that's
where
nice,
it popped,
yeah.
and I didn't have enough money to fix it, so I curled inside of it, and I got sick inside of this thing. I got so sick, I hid inside this thing for like 3 days. All right, so yes, we know poverty.
You should tell girls about that tonight.
That's gonna really turn them on.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
You know, like he was broken, but he's risen up. That's a narrative that is actually very appealing. Okay, so good talking to you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this live. Make sure to leave a comment if you want us to do more lives like this, more live videos where we're able to interact with you and where it's spontaneous. Let us know. The more people like respond to it, the more likely we're going to do more of it. And if you don't like it, then I'll do less of it. So just leave that in the comments. And then if you want to learn about the boot camps and our tour where we're going to be traveling to different cities, I'm going to be putting a link below so you can learn more about that very soon. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and
away.